Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a beautiful day and even more beautiful to talk about advocacy. It's a really busy time this year. As we're, about at the end of February, and we're just really, happy to be here with you all and just share, some resources from CWEALF about the legislative session and how everyone can get involved to advocate for an issue that you care about at the legislature. So welcome. Thank you. So just really quickly, my name is Maddie Granado, and I am the Policy Director for the Connecticut Women's Education and Legal Fund, or CWEALF.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole San Clemente. I'm CWEALF's Policy and Program Associate.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Halloran. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the MSW Policy Intern at CWEALF this year. So if you have any technical issues, please put them in the chat and I can help you. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you both. Again, just as Hannah mentioned, if you're having any trouble hearing us or with your technology, please just ask it in the chat, and we'll try to help you out and solve that issue. But also, I know everyone is really familiar with Zoom at this point in our lives, right? But please just remember to stay on mute. I think you can through a webinar anyways, and also just add your questions that you have throughout our training either to the chat or to the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We will try to get through as many questions as we can at the end of our presentation, but please, if you have questions throughout, just add them, type them down so you don't lose them in your head. So thank you. So just really quickly, a few goals for our time together today. First, we really want to learn more about the legislative process here in Connecticut and what's happening right now. Second, we will deepen your advocacy skills and gain the tools, provide the tools for you to, activate those skills on an issue that you care about. It could be about women's rights or an issue on CWEALF's legislative agenda, or it could be just about something that you are interested in personally. Another goal of ours today is to really just connect with CWEALF, learn more about the work that we do, how you can get involved, and also how we can support you in your role in your community.
Great. So CWEALF is a statewide nonprofit organization that advocates for and empowers women and girls in Connecticut, especially those who are underserved or marginalized. And we were actually founded in 1973, so that makes us one of the oldest women's rights organizations in the country. Today, we work to achieve our mission through legal education, women's advancement and leadership, and public policy and advocacy, which we will speak on today. CWEALF operates a legal education program that provides a direct service and information and referral to individuals in our state who need legal information or assistance. We won't really talk much in detail about this side of CWEALF today, but we're going to add the link to our legal education program in the chat for more information if you're interested.
Great. So CWEALF, our public policy program is really active, advocating for the rights of women and girls in our state. Our goal with our public policy and advocacy program is to elevate the voices and interests of women in Connecticut at the state capitol and in the lawmaking process. We lead a policy agenda every year that is centered on women's economic security, especially for women of color. Over the years, we've been really active in participating in several coalitions, supporting the work of our partners and also leading on certain issues of our own. We lead the Campaign for Paid Family Leave, for example, a coalition that fought for and won passage of a really strong paid family medical leave program in 2019. We are also really proud to serve as the advocacy partner to Secure Jobs Connecticut, a program that's designed to increase the income of homeless families by connecting them to education, training, and support they need to secure and maintain stable employment. So through our advocacy and policy agenda, we really look at issues through the lens of the Secure Jobs family and what they're experiencing and what burdens might be in their way to achieving, economic security for themselves and their families.
Okay, so we really use the word advocacy so much in our work today, so it's easy to take for granted what it really means. But we talk so much about advocacy, not only in our public policy work, but also in direct service to support people throughout the court systems. Advocacy can take a lot of different meanings, and so we're going to cover a few of them today. Advocacy is an activity done to affect social or political change. It's also an opportunity to make your voice heard, whether it be in the legislature during legislative session or in an administrative setting or in your own communities. So in the legislative setting, it's really focused on passing or changing a law, so advocating for that. In an administrative setting, you can do it by changing the way state agencies run programs or collect information or something along those lines. And in a community setting, you can practice advocacy by raising awareness or encouraging others to use their voices and issues on issues that impact their community. All of these different forms of advocacy are important, and they really can't exist without each other. To advocate, we build relationships, educate law and policymakers, engage our communities, and work in coalitions. Finally, advocacy is extremely important because now more than ever, it's critical to have our voices heard to influence change in our state. And we want to also note that this part of the training is focused on legislative advocacy, but as we discussed before, there are many more ways to advocate, not just in the legislature, but beyond. So hopefully you can apply some of these skills to other areas of advocacy as well. So with that being said, CWEALF is focused on legislative advocacy, and we lead a legislative agenda every year to advance rights of women in the state capitol and make sure that our voices are heard in the lawmaking process. So this year, our legislative agenda focuses on several issues to support women during and after the COVID-19 pandemic, including increasing access to paid sick days and affordable childcare, combating the gender wage gap, and other very important points. So we also work a lot in coalitions and supporting our partners in their efforts around reproductive rights or discrimination, affordable housing, access to healthcare, and many more important issues in the state.
Great. So a key part of our legislative advocacy really revolves around the Connecticut General Assembly and the legislative session. So what does that mean? The Connecticut General Assembly, or the CA, is the legislative branch of Connecticut's government. It is made up of the State House of Representatives, which holds 151 members, and the State Senate, which holds 36 members. So that's 187 members of the Connecticut General Assembly total. Together, they enact laws in our state. Members of the CGA are elected every other November, so every 2 years, basically during even-numbered years from the districts that they live in. So members of the CGA serve a 2-year term. Connecticut legislature is considered part-time. The period of time when the CGA convenes to pass laws is called a legislative session. Regular legislative sessions are held from January to June during odd-numbered years, so 2021, and from February to March during even-numbered years. So next year would be a shorter session. So right now we are in the middle, or still towards the beginning, but sometimes it feels like the middle of the 2021 legislative session. So 2021, right, is an odd numbered year, so it's a long session. What does that mean? Since 2021 is odd, the legislature convened on January 6th, and it will adjourn on June 10th, the first Wednesday in January until the first Wednesday of June. It also means that individual legislators can file a bill. We'll get some more of that in a few minutes. And a key focus of this year's legislative session is the need to pass a state budget. That's why it's really important right now, now more than ever, to advocate for the things that you care about, especially if they receive state funding. Lawmakers really need to hear from you. Due to COVID-19, the legislative office building in the state capitol remained closed to the public. The majority of this year's legislative session so far, and for this foreseeable future, has been virtual. So a remote session, does present opportunities to be more accessible to the public, right? It means that you can participate from home. You don't have to worry about driving or finding a way to come to Hartford, especially if you live from that's further away. Sometimes it's not always easy to just come to Hartford for a 3-minute testimony, but have to stay the whole day. But barriers to participation really still exist, and we are concerned about folks who don't have internet access, still being able to tune in and participate. So these are ongoing challenges that we're trying to kind of troubleshoot along the way, and it's really important. As I said, a long session means that the legislature must approve a new biennium budget. This makes, raising your voice so important right now, especially for, a state program or an issue that you care about that receives state funding. So we won't go super deep into, the civics lesson, how a bill becomes a law, any of that like schoolhouse rock kind of thing. But here is just a tentative timeline of how the 2021 session is going and what's to be expected for the next few months. Lawmakers will continue to introduce bills for the next few weeks in committee. Committees will raise bills. Public hearings will continue to ramp up from now until probably the end of March. Most committees, legislative committees, have until the end of March or mid-April to pass bills out of their committees and move them forward to the House or the Senate. Between April and June is really when the House and Senate will convene to debate bills and pass them, right? Then, after the House passes a bill and the Senate passes it as well, then it goes to the governor's desk and he can decide whether to sign it or veto. The last week of session is usually the busiest time, all hands on deck trying to pass as many important issues as possible. So one really key to legislative advocacy is getting to know the Connecticut General Assembly's website. So I'm going to get out of my little presentation here and open up a tab. So as you can see, this is the CGA website. It's cga.ct.gov. And this is where you can find all relevant information about, what bills are up for discussion at the legislature, different events that are going on now that everything is virtual. It's a great tool for the legislative session and beyond, and it's pretty user-friendly. So here you can check the list of House and Senate bills that's published regularly from now until probably the end of March-ish. You can look at the weekly schedule events here for different committee meetings or public hearings that you're interested in. You can scroll down to find your legislators, by inserting your town and your street and your house number. It'll take you to a page that includes a link to your House member and your Senate and your state senator. It's really important. You can also, use the bulletin, which is a really important document for the legislative session right here. It includes all of the information that you need on public hearings, committee meetings, different bills that are up for discussion. It's really like the holy grail of the legislature. It really gives very clear information about what's going on. You can also, navigate different committees here. At the top, you can see what they're working on and if they have a bill that is of interest to you. So we'll go to, say, the Labor Committee right now. That's where a lot of CWEALF work is. You can basically see all of their agendas, what they've worked on so far. You can read their meeting minutes. And just anything that they've sent out of committee to can be found here. So as you're looking through all of these materials and you find maybe a specific bill number that interests you, you can also insert it down here into the quick bill search, which we'll get to in a minute. And it'll send you to a page where you can see all the information about that specific bill, which is really important. So I'll use an example from 2019 of a bill that passed. So if you can go down here and you add any certain number here, you can change the year, see, and then add a number. But I already did this just to quicken up the process here. But So a bill that passed in 2019 was Senate Bill 1, paid family medical leave. CWEALF worked a ton on this issue. We talk about it all the time. It's really important. Now we're working on implementation, which is a different discussion. But this is where you can see just every step that the bill went through throughout the year. So we won't go into all the specifics here, but this is just to make the point that, you know, if you have a bill number in mind, that's great. And you can use the CJA website to track it and see where it is in the process. You can also sign up for a free bill tracking account through the CJA website. It's completely free, and you can kind of sign up here, and it's a way to track any specific bills that you're interested in. After you have an account, you can take the step and like check a little box that says that you'd like to receive alerts for when a bill is taken action on. So if a bill that you're interested in is assigned a public hearing date, or it's voted at a committee, or it's voted in the House or the Senate, you can get either an email or a text alert notifying you when that happens, which is pretty cool. If you have an issue that you're just really into and you really want to see pass, it's a great tool to keep in mind. So yeah, overall, you know, you can use the CJA website to track and follow the path of a bill. You can search by committee, or you can also search by individual legislator, which I didn't get to. Once you find your legislator through that little box on the CJA website, it'll take you to their kind of homepage, and you can see there, you know, any piece of legislation that they've introduced or co-sponsored. You know, if you have a legislator that might not be in your district, but you know is working on an issue that is important to you, you can use kind of their website again to see, you know, what the specific bill number might be. You can also, again, sign up for a free bill tracking account through the CJA website. It's really helpful. And you can use the quick bill search on the bottom of the page on the CJA website to track and follow bills throughout the process.
Thank you, Maddie. So personal stories are really critical to advocacy at any level, but especially legislative advocacy. So they're what really make policy real life. While numbers and statistics are important, it's personal stories and experiences that put voices and faces to an issue. That's what drives our work and what pushes issues over the finish line at the end of session. So building your story is a very important first step in the journey to sharing your experiences with others. So here are some tips on what you can do to make the process a little bit easier. These steps can be different for everyone since this process is very personal. So feel free to use as needed or change them around as you please. So first, think of a memorable event in your life. So what did you go through that got you to this point of advocating on an issue or trying to make a change? It doesn't necessarily have to be a negative experience, just as long as it's something that drives or motivates you and is personal to your life. Next, try and find and write your story. Put together a timeline of events if that's helpful for you to see what happened throughout the story, so consecutively. And you can always edit and revise as needed. Then think about the different elements of your story. So who's your audience and what voice are you using to really speak to them? What is the main point you're trying to get across? To start off, try to share with people who you're really comfortable with. It could be, you know, your family, your friends, someone in your close-knit circle. And just remember that this is a personal experience. So it'll be easier to start sharing with those around you before sharing with other groups of people. So here are some more pieces of advice for when you're sharing your story with legislators, or with other groups or organizations, or even at a public hearing. Make sure to paint a realistic picture and don't be afraid to be genuine during the process. Advocacy is about persuasion. So state your stance on legislation and how your story leads to these conclusions. If you get nervous, always remember why you're there and bring it back to the issue you care about. Obviously, this might sound a little obvious, but sometimes we forget as advocates. Sometimes being persuasive also requires you to back your stories up with facts or other statistics, especially when you're delivering testimony at a public hearing. But your personal experience and your story should always be front and center of your written or verbal testimony. You should try to keep it brief and stick to the highlights. However, you can try to keep sequencing in mind. So start with a prepared one sentence attention grabber to really gauge people's attentions into your story. Then you can go back through the story chronologically. Try to remember that you only have a little amount of time with the legislator, even if that's at a personal meeting or testifying at a public hearing. You'll have about 3 minutes. So make sure you're brief and stick to your key points. And remember that you are the expert of your own story. So ordinary, everyday people bring power to the legislature. Don't be afraid to show the emotions you felt while experiencing an issue. And although facts and statistics are important, as we said before, personal stories are what really drives advocacy forward and builds awareness and enthusiasm around an issue. So legislators are really intrigued, and they're really interested in hearing what their constituents or what the resident people in Connecticut have to say about certain issues that impact them in their everyday lives. So now that you have an issue in mind that you care about and why, it's time to put the advocacy into action. So contacting your legislators is a great, easy way to get involved in the process and learn more about who represents you. The first step is to find who your state representative or senator is. So as Maddie went through the CGA website earlier on in our presentation, again, it's www.cga.ct.gov. You scroll down to the middle of the page to the Find Your Legislator box. You can insert your town, your street name, as you can see on the screen, and your number, and click Find to bring you to the district, to your district's elected officials. It's important to remember that every contact you make is an opportunity to share your story. So to get in touch with your legislator, you can make phone calls, you can write them letters, you can join their email list if they have it, or attend virtual events or webinars that they host to hear about what's on their agenda or what policies and topics they're really interested in working on, and see if they align with what you're interested in. So here are some tips for talking to your legislators. So first, try to identify yourself by name and town, especially if you are their constituents. That's really important. Legislators are very interested in hearing what their constituency has to say in their communities. So briefly share your story and the issue you care about. Remember that the entire conversation should be brief. As I said before, likely no more than 2 minutes in a meeting, right? Then ask their position on their specific issue. So unless you've heard them state it publicly, ask them where they stand on the issue that you care about. Try to request a written response if you didn't speak to a legislator and or local candidate, and instead you spoke to maybe their legislative aide or someone else in their office. Make sure to provide any additional information that they ask for as soon as possible, though. And then finally, you can thank your legislator or the person who took the phone call for their time. Remember, they have a lot to balance. So try to be patient, but be persistent, and don't be afraid to follow up if you don't get an immediate response from them right away. Remember that they are elected and paid to work for you. So if something is important to their constituents, it needs to be important to them as an elected official. You're the expert in how something can impact you. Legislators will most likely remember you because of your story, not so much because of the facts and statistics that come with it, but mostly because of the stories that you share. And as I said before, every contact is an opportunity to share your story or why you care about an issue that you're advocating for or that's affecting you. So any way of communicating is really important, whether that's by email or by phone call or writing postcards or any other way you find you can contact your legislator. It's all important, and it's really critical at this moment to know that your elected officials who they are and where they stand on issues that are important to you. How can we how can we hold them really accountable if we don't know where they stand on certain issues? So it's really important to ask that.
Great, thank you, Nicole. So another key to legislative advocacy and the work that we're doing right now are public hearings. Public hearings are valuable opportunities to make your voice heard on an issue before it might become law or move further through the process. They're another opportunity to share your story and weigh in on an issue pretty early on in the legislative process, whether you support or oppose a specific bill. So all public hearings this session are virtual and they're streamed through YouTube and CTN. So, you know, as we mentioned before, the bulletin is such an important document, and to find any public hearing that's coming up, you should check the daily bulletin pretty often. If you have a specific bill number in mind, you can, as I mentioned, also create a free account on the CGA website to track that bill and receive an email update or a text message when it receives an action, like being scheduled for a public hearing. Submitting written testimony is always a good option, especially if you don't have the time to testify verbally. You can check the bulletin as well for the correct email address to email written testimony to, since each committee has a separate email address. When you do send in your testimony, make sure to CC your own state representative and your state senator, again, so that they know what issues their constituents are interested in being impacted by. You can also sign up to testify virtually via a link provided in each public hearing notice in the bulletin. I'll get to that in a second. After you sign up, you should look for an email with the correct Zoom link to tune in, and then you'll wait basically in a Zoom waiting room on the day of the public hearing until it's your turn to testify, which is a little bit different, right, than being in a hearing room with a bunch of other people, but it's just where we are, so. Okay, so I will just switch tabs for 1 second just to show everyone a public hearing notice. So again, this is the bulletin. If you click on, public hearings up at the top menu bar, when you first, view the bulletin, it'll send you directly to a huge list of public hearing notices. So you'll see, the Committee on Children is hosting a public hearing on March 2nd. Here is the list of bills that they'll be discussing that you can submit written testimony on or sign up to testify verbally. As you can see in this little paragraph here, there's all the information you need about the public hearing. It's the date, the time, how to tune in via YouTube or on CTN. It includes the link to sign up to testify. And it also, includes the place where you can find the list of testimony, the list of orders, the list of speakers. It's in random order. It's basically a lottery process this year. So when you sign up online to testify, then you would want to check back on the committee's website at the specific time listed here for where you are in the order. So at 5 o'clock p.m. you'd want to check back. There's also an opportunity if you don't have internet access to testify by phone. You just have to register a little bit differently. And then the hearing blurb here also includes, the email address to submit testimony to. So this is really important, and it's, this is one specific example, but if you keep scrolling down, there's a lot of public hearings coming up. It's a really busy time in the session for hearings. So another way to do this is always just to do like control find and type in the bill number that you have in mind or like a key term and see if it comes up. You can easily find if the bill that you're interested in is scheduled for a public hearing yet. So yeah, bottom line is remember to check the bulletin. It has a ton of really great information in it, including the link, the list of, any upcoming hearings. Remember that, public hearings are only posted 5 days in advance. So it doesn't give you a ton of time, which is why, writing testimony on an issue that you care about now before a bill might be scheduled is always a good way to handle things and always important.
Great.
So when you're, oh, Nicole, it's you, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, as we've been saying before, giving testimony is a great opportunity for you to share your story and definitely a great way to advocate for an issue you care about. So when testifying at a hearing, make sure to identify yourself and the organization you are representing, if there's any, right? If you're just coming as a member of the public, that's okay too. State your position clearly for or against the proposed bill that's up for the public hearing, and identify the bill by its name and its number. So that's clear. That's what you're talking about. Add your explanation to your testimony so that legislators know why this issue is important to you, and summarize your position on the issue at the end of your testimony for any final remarks you may have. And obviously thank the committee for the opportunity to speak at the hearing. You could also follow CWEALF or other advocacy organizations for sample testimony templates or additional guidance and some other talking points for specific issues. You can also follow CWEALF or other advocacy organizations for updates and action alerts on issues that interest you. For example, we regularly send information about upcoming public hearings and resources on how to submit testimony. We send that through our social media and emails. So that could be something you could be interested in doing as well. So here are just some additional ways to advocate. So writing a letter to the editor or an op-ed in your local newspaper, that's very important. Digital organizing right now, especially during the pandemic, this virtual platform is kind of what we're living every day. So it's important to organize online, sharing on social media about an issue you care about to inform your network and your supporters, your followers. In order to captivate your audience, try to create engaging graphics to go along with the language that you're going to be sharing. To make sure that your followers know what you want them to do, give them concrete action steps, right? That they can follow along and do at their own pace. Advocacy, as we said before, it's a personal journey. So everyone can do different steps and trying to alter them to fit the issues that they care about. Support an existing advocacy effort or build your own coalition with friends, neighbors, community members, people in your networks. That's important. Following and subscribing to organizations involved, including but not limited to CWEALF, for any updates or action alerts, as we said before, and ways to also get involved in the legislative session during this virtual platform. Throughout this journey, it's important to really network and engage and connect with other advocacy organization or just other individuals who may be interested in the same issues or different ones. It might help you in your advocacy efforts, and you might be able to provide some support on their work as well. So it's a collaborative process.
Great. So earlier in our presentation, we highlighted a tentative timeline of the legislative session and what we know so far. So right now we are in the middle of public hearing season. So the best way to really take action on a bill and support CWEALF's work and the work of so many others is to, submit or deliver testimony on a bill that interests you. For example, we're anticipating a public hearing on issues related to access to care for kids, as well as paid sick days, and a major 19 COVID relief bill for workers within the next few weeks. So it's really a great time to think about an issue that you're interested in and prepare and write your testimony just when the time comes. You can also always look back at different committees, and what they've worked on, what has been on their agendas for public hearings. And you could always submit, your written testimony at any time. It doesn't have to be for the exact date of the hearing. I mean, it's great when that does happen. It shows solidarity and strength in numbers, but sometimes the timing doesn't work out. So you can always submit on an issue that you're interested in after the fact as well. I just want to mention that. It's also really helpful right now and moving forward to be contacting your legislators on an issue that interests you, just to put it on their radar, right? And make sure that they know heading into the next few months what's important to their constituents. We know that if a legislator receives, 3 or 4 calls on a specific issue, they're paying attention. now is a good time always to, plant the seed on an issue as session moves forward and legislators begin to vote on bills either, in their own committees or in the House and the Senate within the next few months. If you're interested in an issue that hasn't necessarily been raised as a bill, you can also speak to your legislator, about ways to solve that issue. Is there a way to incorporate what you want into another bill that's been raised and drafted? It's also never too early to start planning for next year as well. And, start building a list and thinking through how to really get that issue raised in, into legislation. So this was a lot of information. Also, I'm not sure why that picture is not loading. We will share the recording of this presentation as well as our slides, but I did want to flag that CWEALF this year created a pretty comprehensive Women's Economic Security Community Action Toolkit. And it outlines, how to contact your legislator, how to testify at a public hearing, how to write an op-ed or a letter to the editor, and do some digital organizing as well. It's all written down. It's in English and Spanish, and we provided the links here and in the chat. It's just a great tool for you to use and share, throughout the next few months. So thank you. So as we've mentioned, throughout this presentation, we are really active on Facebook as well, as are, so many other advocacy organizations. We share action alerts, different updates and resources on our social media pages very often. Your Facebook and Instagram. You can also check us out online at CWEALF.org, our website, and find out more about our other programs that we work on as well. And you can subscribe to receive our action alerts directly to your inbox. We send out occasional notices around a public hearing that's coming up, or how to take action in the most important way in that moment. So you can also send me or Nicole an email. Our email addresses are here, and we're always available to support you and provide any guidance that we can to help you through the process.